My family laughed at my dream, so I bought the company they worked for. They said I'd never make it. They laughed in my face. So I bought the entire company they worked for. Have you ever been mocked by the people closest to you? The ones who are supposed to lift you up, but instead they drag you down? This is the story of how I went from being the family joke to becoming the CEO of the very place they clocked into every single day. It's not just a story about revenge. It's about dreams, grit, and turning pain into power. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every word of this. Before we dive into the story, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories. Thank you. When I was 17, I told my family I wanted to start my own company. I didn't have a clear plan, just a fire in my chest and a head full of ideas. My uncle laughed so hard he choked on his rice. My dad didn't even look up from his phone. My sister? She recorded me saying it, added clown music in the background, and sent it to the family group chat. They played that clip every holiday like it was some kind of family classic. They all worked at this mid-sized tech company, standard 9-to-5 jobs, doing the same thing for years. They believed in safe and stable. I believed in something bigger, and for that, I became the family clown. To them, I was just the dreamer, the one who never followed the script. I wasn't top of my class, I didn't have a business degree lined up, and I definitely didn't have a rich uncle funding my ideas. All I had was this crazy belief that I could do something different. But in that house, dreaming was dangerous. It was better to play it safe, clock in, collect a paycheck, keep quiet. I remember that night clearly. Mom had made biryani. Everyone was in good spirits until I opened my mouth. I want to start a tech company. The laughter? Immediate. Unfiltered. My uncle nearly spat his drink across the table. My sister snorted so hard she couldn't breathe. My dad mumbled, "Start by cleaning your room." I didn't eat much after that. I just sat there, replaying the moment in my head. It wasn't just the laughter, it was the way they didn't even consider it for a second. No questions, no curiosity. Just dismissal. That night, I wrote in my journal, "One day, I'll make them regret laughing." But I didn't mean it as revenge. I meant it as fuel. I started keeping track of every insult, every sarcastic comment. You should try getting a real job. Maybe dream smaller next time. Your cousin got promoted again? What are you doing? Every one of those lines went in the mental vault. I wasn't angry, I was focused. School wasn't really my thing, and I knew it. I passed, but I wasn't getting medals or scholarships. My teachers called me uninspired and said I had potential but no direction. That part was true. I had potential and no clue what to do with it. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to live the rest of my life in that same house, working for someone else and mocking other people's dreams just because I never chased mine. That summer, while everyone else was on vacation or chilling with friends, I locked myself in the local library. I taught myself how to code using free online courses and broken Wi-Fi. I read books about startups, listened to interviews with tech founders, took notes like my life depended on it. Because in my mind, it did. I remember one afternoon, my uncle walked in on me watching a Steve Jobs documentary on the living room TV. He stood there for a second and said, "You know you're not him, right? That stuff only works in Silicon Valley, not here." I didn't say a word. But deep down, I said to myself, "Watch me." Sometimes, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, fantasizing about the day I'd walk into their office building, not as someone looking for a job, but someone coming to take over. I'd imagine my sister at the reception desk, stunned silent. My dad in a meeting, suddenly being told who his new boss was. These weren't just fantasies. They were blueprints for the future. It was painful, sure. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt, feeling like an outsider in your own home. But that pain, it was like flint to my fire. I didn't want their approval anymore. I wanted results. By the time I turned 18, I had a few rough ideas for apps and services. Nothing revolutionary, but things I believed could work. I started saving up by doing odd jobs, fixing laptops, tutoring younger kids, even delivering groceries. I never told anyone what I was saving for. Let them think I was just buying sneakers or a new phone. That year, my birthday gift to myself was a used laptop I bought from a pawn shop. The keyboard was missing a key, and the battery only lasted 20 minutes, but it was mine. That laptop would become the launch pad for everything that followed. The last straw came during one family gathering. My cousin, who had just gotten a job at the same company the rest of them worked for, was being praised like he'd won the Nobel Prize. My dad looked at me and said, "Why can't you be more like him?" I smiled, nodded, and that night I stayed up till 4 a.m. building the outline for my first software idea. I didn't cry, I didn't vent. I just worked. Because by now, I'd stopped needing them to believe in me. I just needed them to get out of my way. Starting a company sounds cool until you're doing it from a freezing, damp basement with a secondhand laptop and zero clue if anyone will ever care. That's exactly where it all began for me and my best friend, Kamal. No budget, no investors, just two kids too stubborn to quit. My grandma's basement smelled like wet cement and old books. But to us, it was the birthplace of something big. We set up a foldable table, 2 plastic chairs, and slapped sticky notes everywhere. Our heater barely worked in the winter, so we wore 3 layers of sweaters and typed with fingerless gloves. Kamal was the brains behind the code. I was the guy knocking on virtual doors. We started with a simple goal: build custom software for local businesses, something, anything, that could get us paid. I'd cold call pizza joints, salons, laundromats. Most hung up, some yelled. A few asked if we were scammers. Still, I kept dialing. Our first win? A tire shop owned by a friend's uncle. We built him a basic booking page. He paid us in cash and gave us 2 free tire rotations. That money bought us a decent Wi-Fi router, which felt like a luxury. We called our venture Next Phase Tech. It sounded like something a real company would name itself. We even made a logo in Microsoft Paint and printed business cards at a local shop that charged by the inch. We handed those out like candy. Grandma didn't understand what we were doing. She thought we were designing video games. Every day she brought us tea and muttered prayers for our little computer thing. Her quiet support meant more than anything anyone else in my family ever gave me. We faced real issues. Mold growing on the walls. The power cutting off mid-demo. A client whose laptop crashed and blamed our code, even though his hard drive was older than our business. We learned the hard way. We learned the real way. Kamal once said, "You know, if we fail, nobody will remember us." I looked at him and said, "But if we win, they'll never forget." And slowly, we started to win. We built a small ordering system for a local pizza place. They liked it, referred us to their cousin who owned a bakery. That bakery referred us to a dentist. It wasn't glamorous, but it was traction. Clients meant cash. Cash meant new gear. New gear meant better work. We upgraded to a second monitor, decent chairs, a heater that worked most of the time. We kept our costs low, tracked every penny in a notebook we titled The Escape Plan. Because that's what this was. An escape from being laughed at, looked down on, ignored. Some days we barely spoke. We were tired, cold, and buried in code. But every time a client paid on time, it felt like a trophy. Every time we solved a bug that kept us up till 3 a.m., it felt like a championship. My family still didn't get it. My dad once saw me in the middle of a client call and muttered, "You should apply at a real job. Maybe work where your sister does." I didn't tell him. Instead, Kamal and I split a large biryani and watched YouTube videos about tech startups, silently daring to believe we could be one of them. We argued too. I wanted to grow faster. Kamal wanted to play it safe. But beneath all the tension, we trusted each other. We were in this together, win or fail. By the end of year 1, we had 12 paying clients, 3 long-term contracts, and a decent reputation in our niche. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. And for the first time in my life, I started to believe that maybe I wasn't just the family joke anymore. I was becoming something they couldn't ignore forever. And that was just the beginning. We didn't expect it. Not that day. It was a Tuesday, raining like the sky had something to prove. Kamal was debugging a project for a small salon chain while I was mass sending cold emails to local logistics companies. Most of them ended up in spam, or worse, completely ignored. But then, one email got a reply. "Can you come in for a meeting tomorrow at 10? We're tired of the old system. It's costing us money." I read it 5 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Then I sent it to Kamal with 100 fire emojis. The company was a mid-sized logistics firm that handled warehouse to retail shipments. Their internal software looked like it was built in 1999 and hadn't been updated since. They were desperate for something smoother, faster, and, most importantly, cheaper. We spent all night preparing. Kamal pulled an all-nighter designing a demo app. I wrote the pitch, practiced it in front of the mirror, then re-practiced until I could do it in my sleep. We didn't have suits, so I borrowed a blazer from my cousin that was 2 sizes too big. That meeting changed everything. We sat in a glass-walled conference room with 3 execs who looked bored and overworked. I walked them through the problem we saw in their current system, and then we showed them how our solution could fix it, all in real time. They looked at each other, then at us. "How much?" We had no idea what to say. Kamal and I had agreed on a number the night before, but didn't think we'd actually get the chance to quote it. 10,000, I said, trying not to blink. The guy in the middle nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do a pilot version. If it works, we'll talk full integration." I nearly fainted. The pilot led to full integration. That one client changed our entire game. Suddenly, we weren't just helping tiny shops, we were building enterprise-grade systems. We used the money to hire our first part-time developer and a freelance designer. The work got better. The clients got bigger. Referrals started flowing. One client told their vendor, who told their cousin, who ran a retail warehouse and needed automation. And just like that, our little basement-born business wasn't so little anymore. We moved out of Grandma's basement and into a shared office space downtown. The place was small, but it had windows, and for the first time, we had a space that actually smelled like progress, not mildew. I remember looking around and thinking, this is what momentum feels like. At home, my family still thought I was freelancing on random projects. They had no idea I'd just closed a 5-figure deal. No idea we had started turning a profit. No idea we had a team of 5 people now. And I didn't tell them, because this story wasn't finished yet. Not even close. While my world was expanding, theirs stayed exactly the same. Family dinners hadn't changed one bit. Same couch, same table, same arguments about politics and cricket. Except now, there was a new running joke. "So how's the little startup going?" They'd smirk when they said it. Like they were being supportive, but really, they were still mocking me, just quieter now. My dad once asked, "You still playing with computers? You know your cousin just got promoted, right?" Yep, I knew. I always knew. Because they made sure I knew. What they didn't know was that I'd hired 2 developers that same week and landed a contract that would cover our rent for the next 6 months. I was building something real. But I stayed quiet. Because I didn't want them to see the glow up until the lights were fully on. My sister once posted on her Instagram story, "Can't believe people still think their little side hustle is gonna make them rich, LOL. I knew that was for me. I didn't respond. Instead, I bought a new laptop. One with a backlit keyboard and battery life that didn't give up in 30 minutes. Kamal and I were now taking meetings in actual cafes with actual CEOs. Our proposals had logos. Our slide decks looked sleek. Clients respected us. Some even looked up to us. And every time I heard a "we're impressed," I remembered every time someone in my family said I was wasting time. There was a shift happening. Slowly but surely. We weren't hustling just to prove a point. We were hustling because people were finally noticing. And soon, my family would have no choice but to notice too. It started slow. A new client here. A bigger project there. But then, boom, everything took off like someone had flipped a switch. One week, we were handling 5 projects. The next, we had 15. Word spread fast. Apparently, being young, fast, and actually delivering what we promised was enough to shake up the local tech scene. We doubled our team. Then tripled it. hired our first project manager, got invited to speak at a local startup event. We even made our first viral LinkedIn post. The highlight? A retail chain with 20 stores across the country asked us to revamp their entire inventory system. That deal alone paid for 6 months of operations and gave us credibility we couldn't have bought with money. Suddenly, we were no longer the underdogs. We were the rising stars. I remember walking into our new office, a glass-walled corner space with bright lights, ergonomic chairs, and a coffee machine that didn't leak. I just stood there, soaking it in. This was real. This was happening. And yet, at home, nothing had changed. My dad still reminded me every week that government jobs had benefits. My sister still asked if I was finally earning more than minimum wage. And my uncle? He told me to invest in crypto instead. I smiled through it all, because they had no clue what was coming. We launched 2 new products, one for order tracking, another for automated customer service. Both were hits. We got featured in a tech magazine. I even did a podcast interview where someone called me the local Zuckerberg, which was embarrassing but also kind of cool. Investors started calling. Some offered money. Others offered advice. One guy flew in from Singapore just to meet us over coffee. He said, "You guys are the most promising founders I've seen in this country in 5 years." That's when I knew we weren't just playing anymore. We were building something people couldn't ignore. And that meant, sooner or later, someone from my family's company would hear about us. I just didn't expect it to be my sister. "Hey," she texted one night. "We're trying to find new vendors for internal systems. What's your company called again?" I stared at the message for 10 whole minutes. Then I replied, "You'll know soon enough." It was a lazy Sunday afternoon when I got the email. A tech news blog I followed posted an article titled, "Local Legacy Firm Faces Acquisition Rumors." The headline didn't shake me until I saw the logo in the image. It was their company. The same company my dad, my sister, and my uncle had worked at for years. The place they bragged about at every family dinner. The one they said had real careers and solid futures. Apparently, things weren't so solid after all. The article mentioned declining profits, outdated systems, and rising employee dissatisfaction. My heart started racing. I pulled Kamal into the room. "Guess who's on the chopping block?" He blanked. "You're kidding." "Nope, and I think we're in the perfect position to buy them out." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You want to acquire your family's company?" "I don't want to. I need to." We spent the next 3 days analyzing everything. Finances, their client list, their software systems, their management structure. Everything we could find, we studied. We even hired a consultant to verify internal details we couldn't access. Everything we suspected? True, they were using tech from 10 years ago. Their back end was held together by duct tape and hope. Their internal morale was in the basement. I couldn't believe it. The company they used to worship, the one they said was too big, too stable, too corporate for someone like me, was crumbling from the inside. We called a meeting with our board. I laid out our findings. One board member was hesitant. "Do you have a personal stake in this?" "Absolutely," I said. "But the numbers make sense, and the symbolism, even better." They approved it. Within 2 weeks, we submitted an offer, silent, through a shell entity, so no one would see it coming. It felt surreal. I was about to become the owner of the company that wants to find everything I wasn't. But I wasn't doing this just to prove a point. I was doing this to rewrite the script. The meeting was scheduled for Monday at 9 a.m. sharp. I showed up early, not because I was nervous, but because I wanted to sit at the head of that long conference table before anyone else arrived. I wore the best suit I owned. No logos, no flash. Just clean lines and quiet power. One by one, they walked in. My uncle stopped mid-step when he saw me. My sister blinked like she'd seen a ghost. My dad froze entirely. "What are you doing here?" my sister asked, her voice shaky. I smiled. "I'm the new owner." The silence was deafening. The HR rep awkwardly shuffled in, mumbling something about the acquisition. Legal details. Restructuring plans. New leadership. All of it buzzed in the background while my family sat across from me, pale-faced. I let the silence hang for a few more seconds. Then I got up and formally introduced myself, not as their relative, but as the CEO of the company that now owned theirs. My uncle tried to laugh it off. Well, guess the kid pulled it off after all, huh? I didn't laugh. This isn't personal, I said. It's business. The same way you treated my dreams like a joke, this company treated its innovation like a risk. That's why you're here today. My dad stared at the table. My sister looked away. I laid out the changes. Some departments would be merged. Others cut. Efficiency would be prioritized. Redundant roles reviewed. I didn't need to name names. They knew. For years they looked down on me. Now they had to look up, literally and professionally. The final slide of the presentation was simple. Welcome to the future. No mic drop needed. Just facts. When the meeting ended, I stayed back. Watched as they walked out, one by one. My uncle, pretending to be unfazed. My sister, avoiding eye contact. My dad, slower than usual. This was the moment I had dreamed of. But oddly enough, it wasn't revenge I felt. It was peace. Ownership felt different than I expected. It wasn't fireworks and champagne. It was emails, meetings, and making decisions that affected people's lives. I didn't come in swinging the axe. I came in with a plan. The goal wasn't to destroy the place. It was to fix it. But fixing something broken often means replacing the parts that no longer work. I started with the systems. Outdated platforms were swapped out for streamlined, cloud-based solutions. IT got a total overhaul. Departments were restructured. New performance metrics were put in place. And slowly, the numbers started improving. As for my family, I didn't fire them right away. I gave them a chance. Not because they deserved it, but because I wanted them to see how a real leader moves. My sister was moved to customer support. She went from calling shots to answering calls. My dad, once head of his division, was now reporting to a manager 5 years younger than him. My uncle? Let's just say he suddenly discovered what early retirement looked like. It wasn't about revenge, it was about clarity. And in the silence of their offices, they finally saw me for who I had become. Some employees quit, but many stayed. They were tired of stagnation. Tired of watching good ideas die in bureaucratic loops? I gave them room to breathe and they responded. Productivity went up. Morale rose. Clients returned. We even brought in a culture coach. Someone who helped rebuild the internal trust, not just the systems. The company my family once praised for its security had become something new. It had become bold, adaptive, hungry. And this time, it had my fingerprints all over it. They never saw the nights I went to sleep hungry. They never saw me cry on the bathroom floor because another client ghosted us. They never saw the panic attacks, the overdraft alerts, or the time Kamal and I thought we'd have to shut everything down because we couldn't afford a server renewal. To them, I just got lucky. But luck doesn't explain 20-hour workdays. Luck doesn't debug broken code at 3 a.m. Luck doesn't survive being laughed at every day by the people who are supposed to believe in you. They thought my silence was failure. It was actually focus. When they rolled their eyes, I was sketching new features. When they called me lazy, I was learning marketing funnels. When they said, "That'll never work," I was already testing version 2. The moment I walked into that boardroom, I wasn't just a CEO. I was every insult they ever hurled. Every joke they cracked. Every time they made me feel small, I carried it, and I turned it into power. That's what they never understood. It was never about the money, or the title, or even the company. It was about proving that even if no one claps for you, you can still put on a show. They thought they broke me, but they built me. And the best part? I never had to raise my voice. I just raised my standards. A year after the acquisition, I called for an all-staff meeting. Everyone, old staff, new hires, department heads, interns, was there. The company was thriving now. Systems ran like clockwork. Feedback was positive. We were winning contracts we once couldn't even dream of. I stood in front of them all, dressed in the same clean-cut suit I wore the day of the takeover. But this time, I wasn't a stranger. I was their leader. I looked out at the crowd and saw familiar faces. My dad in the second row, quiet. My sister off to the side, arms folded, eyes low. My uncle didn't show up. No surprise there. I took a breath and started speaking, not about quarterly goals or projections, but about growth, humility, and how belief in oneself can beat 100 voices of doubt. I told them how I started. The basement, the failures, the ridicule. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. At the end of the meeting, I announced new promotions. Some people got raises. A few got let go, not out of spite, but because it was time. The company needed fresh energy. And then I walked back to my office. The corner one, with the view. I stood by the window, looking out at the skyline. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel angry, or bitter, or even triumphant. I just felt proud. Proud of the journey. Proud of the lessons. Proud that I didn't let anyone else write my ending. They laughed at my dream. So I built it. Then I bought theirs. If this story moved you, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you love emotional, powerful stories like this one, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Please.